Hi there, welcome to my No BS Gear Review channel. Have you ever wondered what if you took 3 iconic knives and mushed them all together to create an instant best-selling EDC pocket knife? You would get a DCA Maximal, a knife fabricated in China by CJRB, who are subsidiary of Artisan Cutlery and makers of some of the most budget knives currently on the market. So who is DCA? He is an eloquent and soft-spoken media director and the YouTube channel host on The Knife Center, David C. Anderson. And his knife represents him quite well with this larger than average for a small knife handle and not too showy but practical looking blade. Dave's videos got me hooked on KnifeTube, and that's why I'm a fan. How much of a fan am I? For example, I know that his famous tagline appeared on episode 16 of FAQ show, where I get to answer
all your knife questions, whether they're sharp or dull. I don't know. New tagline? I'm not sure.
An instant classic. I'm talking about the tagline. We'll see about the knife. But I digress. This is not a full review video. We will do an EDC meter review on this knife soon. Tonight I'm just going to share my first impressions of this knife with you and banter a little bit. Let's just state the obvious. Dave has handled so many knives in his career that he knows exactly what will sell and to whom it will sell and for how much. So it's no surprise that he borrowed the best features from the most iconic knives. Take a look at the blade on this Hinderer XM18 and the Maximal. Both have so-called slicier grind, which is a type of the primary bevel that starts out narrow at the base of the blade and then widens toward the tip, giving you a very slicey, low resistance way to enter the material, yet producing a significantly more toughness near the base, where you still have a lot of thicker metal at the spine. This is going to be a hard-working knife, all other things being equal with small EDC knives. And that's what Hinderer was famous for as well. Let's put it aside. So why do I have ZT308 on the canvas here? When I took a first look at this handle straight out of the box, I said, I've seen this somewhere before. And I didn't mean in general, I meant within my collection. Sure enough, here's a ZT308. And obviously both have this reverse palm swell. Its purpose is to engage the heel of your hand while leaving enough space on the handle for the media part of your palm to bear down and assure a good grip. That's especially good for push cuts and defensive cuts, and it's clearly present on the ZT. And I have no doubt then when designing it, Dave was thinking about ergonomics and comfort for your hand for a long duration cutting project. And it definitely worked because I experienced no discomfort whatsoever even after bearing down on the handle as hard as I can. Now let's talk about another obvious thing here. Take a look at the $50 Maximal and God knows how much dollar Benchmade Mini Freak with carbon and S90V steel. Same blade shape, same weight in G10 version. Even the spacing between the pivot and the axis lock is very similar. These knives are not even so distant cousins. There are some fundamental differences. For example, the Mini Freak has a partial liner extending only just past that central screw, whereas the Maximal has a full liner. Again, orientation toward toughness here. There's one thing about the Maximal that kind of eats at me on the OCD level, and that's the thumb studs. See, these thumb studs are in the wrong place. If you're trying to sharpen it with a fixed angle sharpener, you're going to hit the thumb stud. But you can take a T6 screwdriver and remove it. This one is riveted in. Those riveted thumb studs are a feature on every cheap knife. Let me show you. Here's my Walmart knives collection. That's a $5 knife with the riveted thumb studs. That's another $5 knife from Ozark Trail with a riveted thumb stud. Right? And here's one more. So, you know, I think the aluminum accent is a little cheap looking too, but it's just me, such a personal thing. Back to thumb studs. Because they're riveted on, they're not removable. Unless I'm missing something, unless it's like a screw pretending to be a rivet. But that would be like putting hubcaps on your fancy alloy wheels. I didn't realize at the time of making a purchase that Maximal will be available in carbon fiber for $20 extra. That comparison would be even better. No worries. I am well set in Benchmade department. And so, if you compare the Mini Freak and its Chinese new cousin, Maximal, you will find out that they weigh basically the same. 3 grams difference, and the Mini Freak is just 3 grams lighter. And they will function and feel in hand the same. What this handle lacks in width, it makes up in thickness in this direction a little bit. And what this handle lacks in thickness, it makes up in the width. So for people with longer fingers, this probably work better in a hammer or gorilla grip. Anyway, speaking of gorillas, there's one big one in the room. The 500-pound gorilla in the room is the fact that Benchmade is 5 times more expensive. Of course you're not going to get 5 times the performance no matter what, because functionally they are identical. With the patent on the access lock expired, don't you wonder why Benchmade just doesn't say, okay, Father Muggers, we're going to reduce the price on all our knives by 75% and kick all the CJRB, CVVs, Artisans, V's, all of them back to China. Not likely to happen because they got marketing, distribution, and sales staff to feed. Let's go and talk about another little baby gorilla in the room. This is another YouTuber design knife by Zach Whitmore from Zach in the Wild and formerly from Blade HQ Knife Banter channel. And this is his Yonder. And they share a lot of commonalities here, so I couldn't help showing them side by side. There's a little bit of a visual illusion going on, making this blade look a little longer, so kudos to the designer, whoever drew out, David, if it was you or someone else, kudos for making the blade the same. This one is like a millimeter shorter yet, that's it. But it looks like it's a 1/4 inch shorter, you know, just visual thing. Obviously, very similar materials, identical operating system here, riveted, the same look on the studs, same handle length. So both designers are very experienced campers, outdoorsmen, and that shows. Like, for example, the presence of this pinch bevels, or they're not bevels, like contoured in 3 dimensions. The little pinch points here that allow you to work with the blade. One criticism here, those darn thumb studs are interfering with my index finger and my thumb when I'm trying to pinch down on it. They really are in the way. And I understand Dave was trying to achieve this swoop here to give a little more dynamic appeal to this knife, but really some of the functionality was sacrificed. And looking by the amount of metal from the center to the spine, I think this thumb stud could be shifted all the way to the spine by about, I'm going to call it 1/16 of an inch, so that the actual stud would be tangential to the spine, but the hole is smaller, so it's like a shoulder screw or a screw head. So I think, you know, that's a little bit of a refinement would make it, you know, just perfect. Here on Zach's design, you have a little bit more room. My thumb can actually fit under, but it's also not perfect. So I would say they're on par. I like the treatment of the pocket clip on the show side, pocket clip and placement, and it's countersunk and flathead screws are used. Let me see what we got here. They're also flatheads, but the pocket clip actually sits on top of the G10, which would be a simple thing to do to treat it as this. Of course, this knife, what is it, about $20 more expensive, so you get a little bit more for your money here. I like how the axis lock or crossbar actually is treated. This surface left dressy. You don't need to have a lot of traction because you're gripping it over there by the sides. This protrudes a little more. Very similar though. I don't like large lettering, not because aesthetically they're so crazy, but it's a laser etching, so the reason they're dark, it's carbonized, and that's where corrosion can set in if you expose it to salt or acidic environment for some kind of extended period of time without the wash down. This is not a clutch lock like on Kaiser's, which I appreciate because the spring feels very intense. I'm going to say it's the strongest Omega spring I've experienced, present company included. So this tunes up very close to any old Benchmade knife of the similar size. Here's a mini grip. Yes, they're anemic because there's not a lot of detent. Here, not only did they put a much stronger Omega spring, which I will see, maybe I'll measure during EDC meter test. They also machined a nice camming surface that if you watch how the button traverses, so I'm building up, I'm building up, I'm building up, boom, it releases and it returns and the knife rotates in place. So there's a much more distinct cam release here. Right here you can see it. See how it springs out right there? It almost feels like an assisted knife, but it's not. And it's all because of that. And you saw me not having to use my wrist. So 3 methods of opening. It's going to be 3 points on my EDC meter, but I'm jumping way ahead. Definitely a knife you should be looking at if you're trying to get a reasonably priced all-around beater, or if you are new to a modern knife. Definitely as good an entryway into the modern pocket knife as Dave's channel is into the knife tubing world, for sure. All the other details I'll cover in my upcoming EDC meter video, and that will include the in-depth dive into the blade material, its hardness, its toughness, and overall system durability here, and reliability as well. So, see you then.